If you're over 60, there's one thing you do every single night that could quietly raise your risk of a stroke without any pain, without any warning, while you sleep. No chest pain, no slurred speech, no dizziness to alert you. You go to bed feeling just fine. And by morning, something has changed. You wake up confused, unable to speak clearly, or you can't lift your arm. A stroke, silent, sudden, and life altering, all because of something as simple as the way you sleep. As a brain doctor, I've seen this far too many times, and not because of smoking or poor diet or lack of exercise, but because of common sleeping habits that most seniors believe are safe. They're not. Today, I'm going to walk you through 9 dangerous sleeping positions and nighttime routines that may be increasing your risk of stroke, brain bleeds, or blood pressure spikes, especially in the quiet hours when your brain is most vulnerable. If you or someone you love is over 60, this video could save a life, maybe even yours. So don't look away. Let's begin. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. 1. Sleeping flat on your back with no pillow, supine head level. It seems harmless, even comforting. Lying flat on your back at night, arms at your sides, no pillow under your head. For many older adults, it's a habit that started decades ago. Some say it helps with back pain. Others feel it opens up the chest. But here's what almost no one tells you. Sleeping flat on your back without elevating your head can silently increase your risk of stroke overnight. And you might never feel it coming. When you sleep completely flat, your head is on the same level as your heart. That might sound natural, but physiologically it's not, especially not in older adults. You see, as we age, the vessels in our neck and brain lose their flexibility. Blood doesn't flow as efficiently. The veins that are meant to drain blood from your brain must now fight against gravity. That means instead of draining smoothly, blood can pool, slow down, and even clot, especially in the early morning hours when blood pressure naturally rises. And when blood clots form during sleep, they don't stay quiet for long. One small clot in a narrowed vessel, and the consequences can be devastating. Slurred speech, facial drooping, permanent disability, even death. I want to tell you about Mr. Leonard Whitaker, a 77-year-old retired mechanic from Michigan. Strong, independent, still fixed lawnmowers in his garage. Every night, he laid down flat in bed. No pillow, just the mattress, and his hands folded on his chest. A habit he picked up from his Navy days. He said it helped him sleep deeply. One morning, his wife Mary found him half awake but unable to speak. His eyes were open, but one side of his face had fallen. He couldn't lift his right arm. In the ER, a scan showed a clot in his left middle cerebral artery, a type of ischemic stroke that happens when blood thickens and clots inside narrowed vessels, often during sleep. His carotid arteries were stiff. Blood had pooled too long, and it was all linked to his sleeping position. Doctors worked quickly to dissolve the clot, but Leonard was never quite the same. His speech is slower now. He uses a walker, and every night, Mary carefully props him up on a wedge pillow, something they both wish they'd known about years earlier. What most people don't understand is that when you lie flat, especially with age related vascular changes, venous drainage from the brain becomes compromised. That's medical language for this. Your brain's plumbing system slows down, and stagnant blood can become a breeding ground for clots. Add in natural overnight dehydration and low oxygen saturation, and you've got a perfect storm. This position is especially dangerous for seniors with hypertension, atrial fibrillation, sleep apnea, a history of carotid artery disease, or those on blood pressure medications that drop pressure too low at night. The safest adjustment, slight head elevation, about 30 degrees. It helps gravity assist blood flow, reduces intracranial pressure, and allows the brain to oxygenate more evenly. Even one or two supportive pillows can make a profound difference. And always choose a pillow that supports the natural curve of the neck, not one that tilts the chin forward. Some people think this is just about comfort. It's not. It's about blood flow to the most delicate organ in your body. It's about protecting your independence, your memory, your ability to speak, to walk, to be you. Leonard told me once with tears in his eyes, "Doc, if someone had just told me that sleeping flat could do this, I would have changed it years ago." Let me be that someone for you today. But if you think that's concerning, wait until you learn what happens when you sleep face down, where your neck bends in just the wrong way, cutting off the very arteries that feed your brain. If you're still watching and finding these insights helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're with me. Now let's move on to point number 2. 2. Sleeping face down, prone position. There's a quiet mistake many older adults make every night, one that feels comforting, familiar, and even harmless. Sleeping on your stomach. Maybe you started doing it to ease back pain. Maybe you like the pressure on your chest, or the way it makes you feel cocooned and safe. But I'm here to tell you something you may have never heard from your primary doctor. Sleeping face down can be one of the most dangerous positions for your brain. In medical terms, it's called the prone position. In younger bodies, it might not cause much harm. But as we age, our circulation slows, our arteries harden, and our oxygen levels dip more easily, especially during the deep sleep stages. When you sleep face down, several dangerous things begin to happen. Your neck turns sharply to one side to allow you to breathe. This position compresses the vertebral arteries, which are responsible for carrying oxygen-rich blood from your spine to the back of your brain, a region that controls balance, coordination, and even your ability to stay conscious. But that's not all. This posture also places pressure on the carotid arteries, especially when your head sinks into a soft pillow or mattress. Blood flow is slowed. Veins that are supposed to carry blood away from the brain become kinked. Stagnant blood collects, thickens, and in vulnerable people, it forms blood clots. These clots may sit quietly for hours, waiting until the early morning surge in blood pressure hits, dislodging them and sending them directly into the brain. The result? A stroke, often massive, sometimes fatal. I'll never forget Mrs. Ethel Lawson, an 82-year-old retired school teacher from Ohio. She came to me after a terrifying experience. Her daughter had found her one morning lying awkwardly on her stomach, her speech garbled, and her left side unresponsive. Ethel was rushed to the hospital, where scans showed a large ischemic stroke affecting her cerebellum. the part of the brain responsible for coordination and balance. But the cause wasn't high cholesterol or atrial fibrillation. Ethel's carotid arteries were narrowed with age, and the hours she spent sleeping face down with her neck twisted had reduced blood flow just enough to allow a clot to form. By morning, the damage had been done. Ethel survived, but she no longer drives. She struggles to walk without a walker. And she tells me every time we meet, I had no idea something as simple as how I slept could nearly take my life. Here's the science behind it. In the prone position, neck rotation can impinge vertebral artery flow by more than 40%, especially if the pillow or mattress forces your head backward. Chest compression can reduce lung expansion, leading to low oxygen saturation, which places additional stress on your heart and brain. Obstructed airflow can increase carbon dioxide retention, which further alters brain blood flow, often leading to vascular instability. As we age, we don't tolerate oxygen drops the way we used to. Our body's natural response time is slower. A 30-year-old might wake up gasping and readjust, but at 70 or 80, the same drop in oxygen might pass unnoticed, silently setting the stage for nighttime stroke. And if you're someone who snores, has sleep apnea, or takes sedatives or sleep medications, sleeping face down is even more dangerous. Your body is less responsive. Your airway is more likely to collapse, and the chance of a silent, oxygen-starved stroke goes up. If you or someone you love is in the habit of sleeping on the stomach, I urge you, try switching to your side with a firm pillow that keeps your head aligned. Or better yet, sleep slightly elevated on your left side to help protect both brain and heart circulation. These small changes are not about comfort, they are about survival. Because what feels cozy might be putting deadly pressure on the very arteries that keep your brain alive. And remember, it's not just about how you sleep, it's also where pressure builds while you sleep. Because next, we're going to talk about a sleeping habit millions of seniors fall into, especially those with hip or shoulder pain that quietly cuts off blood flow and leads to sudden strokes in the night. And it happens on your favorite side. 3. Sleeping with a heavy blanket over the head. There's a small, deeply personal habit that many seniors carry with them into old age. Something comforting, almost childlike, that we do without thinking. We pull the blanket up over our heads at night. Maybe it's to block out noise from a snoring partner or a humming fan. Maybe the room feels drafty or too bright. Or maybe, like many who grew up in colder homes, we find a kind of peace under that cocoon of warmth and silence. But for older adults, this small nighttime habit can quietly turn deadly. When you sleep with a heavy blanket over your head, you're not just blocking light or sound, you're limiting airflow. Over the course of the night, oxygen levels drop inside that tiny space. Carbon dioxide, the waste gas we exhale, builds up around your nose and mouth. And while your younger body may have tolerated it decades ago, at 60, 70, or 80, your brain doesn't recover the same way. Low oxygen and high carbon dioxide during sleep increase your risk of blood thickening, and in vulnerable brains, it forms blood clots. Let me tell you about Mr. Richard Hale, an 81-year-old retired postmaster from Iowa. A quiet, thoughtful man, Richard always liked the feeling of sleeping in the dark. He told me he'd been pulling the covers over his head since childhood, Massey. Especially in the winter, his wife had gently teased him for it, saying he looked like a bundled up caterpillar every night, but it made him feel safe, relaxed. And so every evening he tucked in tightly, pulling a thick quilt over his head and curling into sleep. Then one morning, Richard didn't get out of bed. His wife, alarmed, found him groggy and unresponsive. He could barely open his eyes. When the ambulance arrived, his blood oxygen levels were dangerously low, and a scan at the hospital revealed he had suffered a silent stroke in the early morning hours. A clot had formed and lodged in a small vessel deep in his brain, not from atherosclerosis or atrial fibrillation, but from oxygen deprivation during sleep, paired with age-related blood thickening. And yes, one of the risk factors, sleeping with restricted airflow under a heavy blanket. You see, during deep sleep, especially REM cycles, your brain needs consistent oxygen flow. When you're under the covers, rebreathing stale air, your oxygen drops, your heart compensates by beating faster, and your blood pressure begins to fluctuate. These spikes and valleys put stress on already fragile vessels. Add in mild dehydration, slow circulation, and age-hardened arteries, and you've created a perfect setup for a clot to form. And here's the terrifying part. You might never know it's happening. You go to sleep feeling warm and safe, but your brain is suffocating slowly, and by the time the damage is done, you may wake up a different person, if you wake up at all. Medical studies have shown that even mild hypoxia, reduced oxygen levels, during sleep is linked to a significantly increased risk of stroke and cognitive decline in seniors. And this isn't only a risk for those with diagnosed sleep apnea. It can affect anyone whose breathing is disrupted by environment or posture. If you're someone who sleeps with a blanket over your head, even just during the winter months, it's time to rethink the routine. Instead of pulling the covers up, try wearing a sleep mask to block out light, or use earplugs for sound. Keep your room at a comfortable, warm temperature and invest in breathable, lightweight bedding. This isn't about discomfort. It's about protection, about giving your brain the oxygen it needs to restore, repair, and survive the night. Because strokes don't just happen to other people. They happen to good people, thoughtful people. People like Richard, who had no idea that a lifelong habit could nearly steal his ability to walk, talk, and remember. He now sleeps with a wedge pillow, soft lighting, and his blanket folded below his shoulders. He told me quietly, "I never knew something that felt so safe could be so dangerous." And he's not alone. Because what we don't know can hurt us, especially while we sleep. But as dangerous as a heavy blanket over the head may be, it's nothing compared to the next habit, one that millions of older Americans rely on for comfort, yet it might be cutting off blood flow to the brain, starting with the way you rest your arm under your pillow. Let me show you how it happens. If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. Now let's keep going with point number 4. 4. Sleeping upright in a recliner. Frequent in seniors with back pain. For many older adults, sleep becomes more difficult with age. Not just falling asleep, but staying asleep without pain or discomfort. Achy joints, stiff spines, acid reflux, and shortness of breath all lead to one common solution: the recliner chair. You may know someone who's abandoned their bed altogether, or maybe that someone is you. Night after night, recliner sleeping becomes routine. A soft blanket, the television humming faintly in the background, The chair angled just right. It feels secure, but what feels safe can sometimes be quietly dangerous. And as a brain doctor, I've seen how this position, sleeping upright in a reclined chair, can slowly, silently increase the risk of stroke overnight. You see, the human body was designed to rest flat, with blood and oxygen flowing evenly. But when you sleep in a semi upright position, say 45 to 60 degrees, you're putting your circulatory system at a disadvantage, especially if you're older. In this position, gravity does two things: it pulls blood downward away from your brain, and it compresses the major veins in your legs and hips. The result: sluggish blood flow, pooling in the lower limbs, and a much higher risk of clot formation. In younger bodies, this isn't as dangerous. But after age 60, the situation changes. The blood becomes thicker due to age related dehydration. The vessels grow narrower from decades of wear. The heart pumps less efficiently, and that slow moving blood pooled in your lower body can form clots, small, sticky, silent threats that may travel upward during the night or early morning hours. All it takes is one of those clots lodging in a vessel in the brain. The damage is done before you even wake up. Let me tell you about Mrs. Barbara Keene, 79, a retired florist from Kentucky. A lovely woman with a sharp memory and the gentlest smile. She began sleeping in her recliner 5 years ago after a hip surgery made lying flat too uncomfortable. Just until the pain goes away, she told herself, but the pain lingered, and over time, the recliner became her bed. She'd wake up stiff, but managed, until one morning her daughter found her still in the chair, confused and barely able to move her left hand. She hadn't felt a thing, no warning, but a scan revealed she'd had a lacunar stroke, a small, deep stroke caused by a clot that had lodged in one of the tiny vessels inside her brain. She had no major heart condition, no atrial fibrillation. What she did have was poor circulation from years of sleeping upright. Her legs would swell. Her ankles often felt tight. And every morning, she'd feel dizzy getting out of that chair. Looking back, the signs were there. But she, like many, never imagined that a recliner could quietly become a stroke trap. Here's the medical truth: sleeping upright reduces the effectiveness of the baroreflex, the body's natural system for regulating blood pressure. In flat sleep, your brain and heart communicate more easily to balance pressure. But when upright, especially if you're tilted forward or slightly twisted, that reflex weakens, leading to blood pressure instability. And in seniors, this becomes dangerous. Add in medications, dehydration, or compression from tight socks or swelling, and you're facing multiple risk factors at once, all while you think you're just catching a comfortable night's sleep. So if you're someone who sleeps in a recliner or loves naps in that chair, consider this your wake up call. Sleep is not just about rest, it's about positioning your body to protect your brain. If you must sleep elevated, use a hospital style adjustable bed or a firm wedge that elevates your torso without compressing your lower limbs. And be sure to stretch and move your legs regularly to support circulation. Barbara now sleeps in a bed again, with her head slightly raised and a body pillow supporting her hip. She tells me often, "I thought I was making things easier for myself. I never thought I was making them more dangerous." So many people assume the danger is in moving too much. But for seniors, the danger is often in staying still in the wrong position for too long. But if you think a recliner might cut off blood flow, wait until you see what happens when you sleep on your favorite side with your arm pinned under your pillow. It feels natural, comforting, but it may be the most damaging position of all. Let me explain why. 5. Sleeping on the right side with arm under pillow, most dangerous. There's a position that millions of people find comfort in, especially older adults. It feels natural, it feels secure. You lie on your right side, tuck a soft pillow under your head, maybe cradle another between your knees, and, out of habit, slide your arm underneath. You drift off, thinking it's the same way you've slept for decades. But as a brain doctor, I have to tell you, this is the most dangerous sleeping position I see in seniors, not because it causes pain, but because it quietly restricts blood flow to your brain night after night, and may be increasing your risk of stroke in the very hours when you believe you're resting safest. Let's break it down. When you lie on your right side, especially with your arm wedged under your head or pillow, you're putting direct pressure on major arteries and veins in your neck and shoulder, including the carotid artery and the subclavian artery. These are critical vessels, highways for blood traveling to and from your brain. But when they're compressed for hours, the flow slows, blood pools, veins get squeezed, arteries narrow, and in the quiet stillness of sleep, stagnant blood begins to thicken. It forms blood clots. That clot might stay in place for hours until you shift in the early morning. Your blood pressure rises with the sunrise. The clot dislodges. It travels upward. And in seconds, your brain is starved of oxygen. Let me tell you about Mr. Ellis Randall, a 75-year-old Vietnam veteran from North Carolina. Strong willed, fiercely independent, he used to joke that he could still outrun his grandson. Every night, Ellis slept on his right side, just like he had since the military. He'd curl his arm under his pillow for neck support, he told me. One morning, his wife found him halfway out of bed, dazed and unable to move his left leg. He was rushed to the ER, where scans revealed a right hemisphere stroke caused by a clot in his middle cerebral artery. But Ellis didn't have high cholesterol. He wasn't diabetic. He didn't smoke. So, where did the clot come from? As we reviewed his habits, it became clear. Chronic pressure on the right side, combined with years of sleeping on that arm, had compromised his vascular flow. Ultrasound showed narrowing of the carotid artery. And because he'd been unknowingly reducing blood flow for hours every night, a clot formed silently in his sleep and struck just before dawn. Ellis survived, but his mobility is reduced. He now walks with a brace and undergoes weekly therapy to rebuild his coordination. He once said to me quietly, "I had no idea the way I slept could betray me." Here's the truth. This position doesn't just affect arteries, it also compresses the brachial plexus, a bundle of nerves that runs through your shoulder and down your arm. When that bundle is squeezed under your body weight, the nerves don't just go numb. They send distress signals to your brain and can interrupt your sleep cycle without you realizing it. Over time, this poor circulation and nerve stress may contribute to microvascular damage, the kind that builds quietly until it breaks. Older adults are especially vulnerable because with age, blood vessels stiffen and narrow, blood becomes more viscous. Recovery from restricted flow takes longer. Nerve resilience decreases. So, if you've been sleeping on your right side, especially with your arm underneath, it's time to make a change, not because of comfort, but because of life altering consequences. Try switching to your left side with your head gently elevated and your arms resting forward or alongside the body, not underneath. Use a contoured pillow to keep your neck in alignment and reduce pressure on key vessels. One small change may protect your independence, your memory, your ability to hug your family, walk your dog, or speak your grandchild's name. You might not feel the damage being done, but your brain remembers, your blood flow records it, and eventually the body reacts. Because what you don't know while you sleep can change everything when you wake up. But if you think sleeping on your arm is risky, just wait until we talk about what happens when your body tosses and turns all night long, and how restlessness itself may be a red flag your brain is trying to warn you before disaster strikes. Let me show you what it means. 6. Frequent tossing and turning, poor sleep quality. There's a kind of restlessness that sneaks in as we age. The inability to stay asleep, the frequent waking, the constant shifting from one side to the other. You might chalk it up to normal aging, arthritis, or the need to use the bathroom. But what if I told you that this pattern of tossing and turning throughout the night may be a warning sign from your brain, and worse, a trigger for a stroke? As a neurologist, I've come to see sleep not just as a way to recharge, but as a critical time when the brain restores blood flow, balances pressure, and clears out toxins. When that process is interrupted again and again, especially in older adults, the consequences can be quietly devastating. Every time you move sharply in bed, rolling over, shifting your head, adjusting your neck, you're temporarily altering blood flow to and from the brain. In a healthy 30-year-old, that might not matter. But at 70 or 80, with stiffened arteries, narrowed veins, and fragile vessel walls, each of those movements can create brief periods of reduced circulation. Add in low nighttime hydration, low oxygen levels, or underlying blood pressure issues, and your risk skyrockets. But what's more alarming is what we're beginning to understand. Frequent movement during sleep may not just be a side effect of poor rest, it may be your brain gasping for balance. Let me tell you about Mrs. Nancy Delgado, a 76-year-old retired piano teacher from Colorado. She was always sharp, elegant, and precise, the kind of woman who still ironed her pillowcases. But for months, Nancy had been waking up exhausted, even though she thought she was sleeping for 7 hours. Her husband mentioned she seemed to fidget constantly in bed, turning side to side every 10 to 15 minutes. At first, they thought it was just aging. Then came the headaches, the early morning dizziness. And one night, she woke up with her right hand numb and her words slurred. In the ER, imaging revealed she'd suffered a small ischemic stroke, likely hours before she woke. And the cause? Her sleep study and vascular scan showed a combination of poor sleep quality and intermittent hypoperfusion, temporary reductions in brain blood flow that occurred during her restless movements. Over time, this unstable circulation led to blood pooling in her neck vessels, and eventually, it formed blood clots. These clots weren't caused by high cholesterol or a heart condition. They were born from interrupted, unstable sleep, the kind that tricks you into thinking you're resting while your brain is under siege. Nancy's story is far more common than we think, and for seniors especially, This kind of fragmented sleep poses several threats. It prevents your blood pressure from stabilizing, as normal deep sleep lowers BP in a controlled, healing way. It keeps your cortisol levels elevated, which can lead to overnight blood pressure spikes, a key trigger for morning strokes. It disrupts the glymphatic system, the brain's natural cleanup crew, leading to long-term vascular inflammation. And it creates constant fluctuations in cerebral perfusion, the pressure needed to keep blood flowing through the brain's delicate capillaries. These aren't just medical terms, they're early warning signs, and your body has been whispering them to you through the night, waking up drenched in sweat, gasping, or feeling your heart race. That's your brain signaling distress. Tingling in your hands, imbalance, or a stiff neck in the morning. These aren't just age-related nuisances. They may be your body's way of begging for better sleep positioning, hydration, and circulation. So what can you do? Start by treating your restlessness as a symptom, not a habit. Avoid late caffeine or alcohol. Keep your room cool and dark, but use layered bedding instead of heavy sheets. Use a body pillow to cradle your joints and prevent unconscious jerking. And most importantly, talk to your doctor about a sleep study if you or your partner notice you're waking often or moving excessively in bed. Nancy now sleeps with a soft cervical pillow, keeps water near her bedside, and practices slow breathing exercises before bed. Her recovery has been slow, but she tells me, I used to think waking up tired was normal. I didn't realize it was a warning I was ignoring every night. And she's right, because when sleep becomes a battlefield, the body remembers. But there's another silent threat that works hand in hand with poor sleep. And it's one that often gets overlooked because it starts before bedtime. It begins the moment you forget or intentionally skip something critical. A dose of medication, a small pill, a simple routine. That might be the only thing standing between you and a life-changing stroke. Let's talk about what happens when you skip your heart or blood pressure meds before bed. If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. Now let's keep going with point number 7. 7. Sleeping after skipping blood pressure or heart medication. For many older adults, the routine of taking daily medications becomes second nature until the night comes when you forget. Or maybe you feel fine and tell yourself, just this once it won't matter. Maybe the bottle's empty, or you're tired, or you're worried about side effects. And so you skip that little pill meant to control your blood pressure or regulate your heart rhythm. What you may not realize is that one missed dose, especially before sleep, can turn into a silent danger while you rest. And for seniors, this danger can come in the form of something irreversible, a stroke that arrives before morning without a single warning sign. Let me explain why. Your blood pressure follows a natural rhythm, rising in the morning and falling at night. This dipping is how the body resets. But if you have high blood pressure, atrial fibrillation, or any cardiovascular condition, your body doesn't regulate this rhythm well on its own. That's what medications are for, to maintain stability when your system can't. But when you skip your evening dose, especially if it's a beta blocker, calcium channel blocker, ACE inhibitor, or anticoagulant, something alarming happens. Your blood pressure may spike overnight, often between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., the very hours when most strokes occur. Your heart might race or become irregular, And if your vessels are already narrowed from age, cholesterol, or inflammation, that sudden surge in pressure can cause the blood to pool, stagnate, and form clots. Clots that don't stay quiet for long. Let me tell you about Mr. Harold Green, a 72-year-old retired electrician from Wisconsin. He was diligent with his health, took walks, ate sensibly, never smoked. He had mild hypertension, and his doctor had him on a low dose medication just once a day at night. One evening, Harold was watching a ball game, got distracted, and forgot his pill. He told himself it was no big deal. He'd take it in the morning, but he never got that chance. The next day, Harold woke up feeling strange. His wife noticed his face looked different. He tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Within an hour, he was in the hospital, suffering a moderate ischemic stroke. The doctors found a small clot in the left hemisphere of his brain, likely formed during the early morning hours when his blood pressure rose unchecked, a result of the missed medication. The worst part? Harold had no idea the risk was so immediate. He assumed one skipped dose couldn't do much harm. But in older adults, where arteries are less elastic and blood becomes thicker with age, it can be the tipping point. Physiologically, here's what happens. Blood pressure medication works by easing the stress on your heart and vessels. When that medication is skipped, the protective shield is gone. Pressure builds, the lining of your arteries becomes irritated. Platelets, the tiny cells that help blood clot, become more active. And where there's pressure and turbulence, a clot is likely to form. In seniors, the margin for error is small. One skipped pill can mean the difference between a stable night and a morning that changes your life forever. Harold is recovering with therapy, but he now takes his medication on a strict schedule, no exceptions. He carries a pill reminder in his pocket, and he told me during a follow-up visit that one night cost me my words. I won't let it cost me anything else. If you take blood pressure or heart medications, even low-dose aspirin or blood thinners, take them consistently. Set a reminder. Ask a loved one to check in. Keep a backup pill organizer beside your bed. Because at this stage in life, your brain relies on routine even more than your memory does. And remember, it's not just what you do that protects you. It's what you fail to do, even once, that can undo years of effort. But what if the danger doesn't come from inside the body, but from the room around you, from the cold air brushing across your neck while you sleep, from the missing support beneath your head? What happens when you sleep in a chilled room without the right neck support? You might be surprised how quickly it can affect your brain. And it has nothing to do with comfort. Let me show you. 8. Sleeping in cold rooms without proper neck support. We often associate cold nights with better sleep. That crisp air, the cool sheets, the way your body curls into warmth beneath the blanket. It feels refreshing. Many older adults even turn the thermostat down low, believing it's healthier or more energy efficient. But what if that cold room, especially when combined with poor neck support, was doing more than making you shiver? What if it was quietly restricting blood flow to your brain, tightening your arteries, and increasing your risk of a stroke while you sleep? Most seniors don't realize this, but temperature and posture during sleep deeply affect your vascular system. As we age, our body becomes less efficient at regulating heat, especially at night. A cold environment causes vasoconstriction, the narrowing of blood vessels. This effect is most dangerous when it occurs in the neck, where two vital arteries, the carotid and vertebral arteries, supply oxygen-rich blood to your brain. Now, imagine your neck slightly bent at the wrong angle on a soft pillow, or worse, unsupported entirely. That subtle misalignment combined with cold-induced vasoconstriction reduces the flow of blood to the brain. In an aging body, where vessels are already stiffened and blood is slower to circulate, this sets the stage for a deadly combination: restricted flow, pooling blood, and clot formation. Let me tell you about Ms. Loretta Dixon, a 78-year-old retired nurse from Montana. She was as sharp as ever, full of stories and wit. She had always preferred a cool bedroom and slept with the window cracked, even in the winter. Her habit was to curl up tightly, her neck slightly tucked into her chest with only a flat pillow beneath her head. She thought this was normal, even healthy. Then one morning, she didn't wake up as usual. Her son found her partially alert but unable to focus her eyes. Her speech was slurred, and she couldn't sit up on her own. At the hospital, scans showed a brainstem stroke, a particularly dangerous type, caused by a clot in the posterior circulation, the area fed by the vertebral arteries, which run along the spine and through the neck. There was no heart disease, no history of smoking, no skipped medication. But there was one likely culprit: chronic neck compression and cold-induced vasospasm while sleeping. Over time, these two factors had reduced blood flow just enough to form a clot, which had traveled into the most vulnerable part of her brain. Loretta is now in physical therapy. She walks with assistance and has difficulty swallowing, a painful reminder that what we overlook as minor discomfort can change our lives in a single night. Cold temperatures tighten vessels. Poor neck support misaligns those vessels. Together, they quietly reduce oxygen to the brain, especially in the early morning hours when blood pressure naturally spikes. If your brain is under-oxygenated and your vessels are constricted, even a small clot can cause devastating damage. And here's something else most people don't realize. Many seniors already have some degree of cervical spondylosis, age-related changes in the neck spine. When you combine this with poor pillow support in a cold room, the risk of reduced blood flow to the brain increases dramatically. So what should you do? Keep your room cool, but not cold. The optimal sleep temperature for older adults is around 65 to 68 or 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. Make sure your neck is properly supported. Use a medium firm pillow that keeps your head aligned with your spine, not angled downward or turned sharply to one side. Avoid sleeping with your chin tucked into your chest or your head cocked to the side. These small adjustments may seem insignificant, but they are acts of protection, a way of keeping your brain nourished while you sleep. Loretta told me recently, "I never thought something so simple, the cold, my pillow, could hurt my brain. I just didn't know." And that's the most frightening part. So many seniors don't know. They're doing what feels natural, what they've done for years, without realizing that the aging body plays by different rules. But sometimes the danger isn't in the position you sleep in, it's in what you did just before you closed your eyes. Because the final habit may be the most misunderstood. What happens when you go to bed right after a heavy meal or a glass too many? What does alcohol or late night digestion do to your heart, your blood pressure, and your brain while you rest? Let me take you there, because this last one could be the hidden trigger that pushes everything over the edge. 9. Sleeping immediately after heavy drinking or big meal. There's a common belief many of us carry into our later years, that a full belly and a glass of wine help us sleep better. that feeling of warmth, of comfort, of winding down the day with a hearty dinner and a nightcap. It's a ritual in many American households. But as a neurologist, I need to tell you something you may never have heard before. Going to bed right after a heavy meal or alcohol may silently trigger the kind of stroke that robs you of everything: your speech, your memory, your independence, before you even know it happened. The aging body processes food, alcohol, and stress very differently than it once did. What once brought comfort can now become a silent danger. When you consume a large fatty meal late at night, especially one rich in sodium or sugar, your digestive system works overtime. Blood is redirected from the brain to the gut. This drop in brain circulation may not feel dramatic, but if your arteries are already narrowed with age, the consequences can be significant. Add alcohol to the equation, and you've just created a perfect storm. Alcohol acts as a vasodilator first. It widens blood vessels. That's why your face might flush or you feel drowsy after a drink. But as it wears off, your vessels suddenly constrict again. Blood pressure surges. The heart works harder to stabilize itself. In older adults, this abrupt shift can lead to arrhythmias, sharp blood pressure swings, and poor oxygen delivery to the brain, all of which quietly raise your stroke risk, especially during sleep when you're most vulnerable. Let me tell you about Mr. Gerald Thompson, a 74-year-old retired farmer from Nebraska. A man of discipline and strength, Gerald had one simple joy: his evening routine. Dinner at 7, a glass of bourbon at 8, bed by 8:30. One winter night, he indulged in a holiday dinner: turkey, mashed potatoes, gravy, pie, and his usual drink. He felt satisfied, even proud. But that night, something changed. Around 4 a.m., his wife awoke to find him cold and unresponsive. He was rushed to the emergency room, where a CT scan revealed a massive ischemic stroke in the frontal lobe, caused by a clot that had formed and traveled during the night. The doctors found no signs of atrial fibrillation, no recent infection, no skipped medication. What they did find was elevated post-meal triglyceride levels, dehydrated blood, and constricted vessels from alcohol rebound. That combination had reduced circulation to the brain just long enough to allow a clot to form, quietly and fatally. Gerald survived, but the stroke stole his ability to speak. His wife, now his full-time caregiver, told me through tears, "We thought we were doing everything right. We didn't know dinner and a drink could take him from me." The truth is, digestion and alcohol compete with your brain for resources. After age 60, the digestive system slows down, meaning food sits in the stomach longer, drawing blood away from the brain for hours. Alcohol further dehydrates the blood and can disrupt the natural heart rhythm. Combined, these two forces create unstable blood pressure, encourage clot formation, and reduce cerebral perfusion, especially during the early morning surge in cortisol when strokes most often occur. If you're going to drink, do so in moderation, ideally earlier in the day. If you enjoy a full meal, allow at least 2 to 3 hours before lying down. Drink water with your dinner. Avoid salty, greasy, or sugary foods late at night. And don't mistake drowsiness for healthy sleep. Alcohol-induced sleep is fragmented and disruptive to brain function. This isn't about never enjoying food or a drink again. It's about respecting what your body needs at this stage of life. You've worked hard to live well. Don't let a simple dinner routine undo what you've built. Because when it comes to stroke, the threat doesn't always come with pain or warning. Sometimes it comes quietly, wrapped in comfort, disguised as routine. And now that we've uncovered the 9 most dangerous sleeping habits that could raise your risk of stroke overnight, you may be wondering, what does safe sleep really look like? What can I change starting tonight, not just to sleep better, but to protect my brain for the long run? Let's bring it all together. And I'll walk you through the habits that heal, not harm. Because prevention begins with awareness, and the power to change begins with you. Final wake up call: sleep isn't just rest, it's protection. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you, not just for reading, but for caring enough to understand the truth about how sleep can quietly shape the health of your brain. What you've just learned isn't about fear, it's about power, the kind of power that comes from awareness, from knowing what's happening inside your body while the world sleeps. At this stage in life, knowledge is not just helpful, it's protective. And every choice you make now, no matter how small, holds more weight than it did decades ago. We've walked through 9 silent habits that may seem harmless: positions of comfort, routines of familiarity, decisions made out of pain or fatigue. But each one has the potential to slowly, quietly push the brain toward danger. Sleeping flat without a pillow, face down, in a recliner, under a heavy blanket, or on your favorite arm, tossing and turning all night, skipping your medication, sleeping in the cold without neck support, or going to bed with a full belly and a glass of alcohol. Each of these, over time, creates the conditions for blood to stagnate, thicken, and clot. And in a body already facing the natural changes of age, stiffened arteries, slower circulation, less oxygen, these clots are not just possible, they're likely. But here's the most important truth I can offer you as a doctor. Most strokes that happen during sleep are preventable. Let that settle in. They are not inevitable. They are not random. They are often the result of routines we never questioned, signals from the body we ignored, or comfort habits that no longer serve us as we age. And so, if there is one message I hope you carry from this, it's this: you still have control. You still have the ability to change how you sleep, how you care for your brain, and how you protect your tomorrow. Because sleep is not just rest. Sleep is when the brain restores blood flow, clears toxins, balances hormones, and prepares for another day. Sleep is when your brain is most vulnerable, but also when it's most open to healing, if you let it. Start tonight. Elevate your head slightly. Sleep on your left side if you can. Support your neck. Skip the late drinks and heavy meals. Take your medications without fail. Choose breathable bedding. Hydrate. Create a sleep space that honors the years you've lived and the life you still want to enjoy. These are not dramatic changes. They are subtle shifts, but they carry immense weight. And in a world full of things we can't control, this is one part of your health where your decisions matter every single night. You are not too old to change. You are not too far along to protect yourself. And you are never too late to learn how to sleep, not just for comfort, but for survival. As I often tell my patients, it's not about how long you sleep, it's about how wisely you sleep. So tonight, as you pull back the covers and lay your head down, ask yourself, is the way I'm sleeping helping my brain or hurting it? Because when you protect your sleep, you protect everything. your speech, your memory, your balance, your independence. You protect the very essence of who you are. And that is always worth it. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.